Now, for practice, I would like for you to do some harmonic analysis with secondary dominants and leading tone chords. So on your paper, I have marked on this point of the video that 1, 2, 8. And I would like for you to just write 1 equals, as it says there, and in the blank, write the chord. We're in the key of E major. We start on an E major triad. Look at chord 2. Analyze this chord. Still diatonic. Here it comes. So here this is in tempo. 1, 2, 3. You can also see some examples in an actual musical example. Now you'll notice that the triads, or the 7 chords, are analyzed for you in terms of the quality. But I would like for you to turn those G7, C, A7, D into actual Roman numerals. So instead of just simply giving the harmonic quality, that you're actually providing the harmonic function. And as always with this video, you will see that there are secondary dominant functions. Here's the C, A7 to D minor, B7 to E minor, to G7, and then to C, and then down to C again. There's a non-chord tone in there. D7 to F, and then and then G7, back to C. Listen to that one more time and provide the harmonic analysis. Isn't that wonderful? That silly Chopin in the 19th century, he likes to do even more interesting things. Instead of going from a 5-7 of 6, he actually tonicizes the 6 and then right away tonicizes the 2 and then tonicizes the 5 and then finally to the 5-7-1, but then tonicizes the 5 again. This is called successive secondary dominance, where you have multiple secondary dominants in a row. So this is the sound of just the chords without all the fanciness of Chopin. Here's a 2-7. Going to the 5-7 of the submedian 6. And then immediately to the 5-7 of 2. And then 5-7 of 5. And then 5-7, and then primary key, and then to the 1. 5-6-5. Of 5 going to 5. And here it is with all the non-chord tones and more interesting rhythmic things that Chopin wrote for this chord progression. Polonaise in C sharp minor, opus 26, number 1, measures 82 to 83. I'm sure you're asking yourself, well, how would this look in figured bass? I'm so glad you asked. Obviously, you understand, as we review the figured bass symbols, that when we have a flat next to a 7, that would say that the 7th is flatted above the bass. The natural sign of the bass note means that the 3rd is natural, and a slosh through a number means raised a half step, whatever number above the bass, that is, has a slash through it. And that is how we can use figured bass to represent these secondary chords. I would like for you to provide your own analysis, both in the key of C, so when you're dealing with this triad right here, it's simply a C major triad. There's no figured bass. This is simply an A minor triad, and this is simply a G major triad, simply because we have no figured bass. However, we have an accidental leading tone to G, And it is a 6/5 chord, which means there's a 6 and a 5th above the bass. And in this case, here, we have a 4th and a 3rd above the bass, but also the 6th above the bass has a slash, which means a 6th above B is going to be raised a half step. Analyze those triads and put those in the blanks provided here. We will go over those in class tomorrow. Then do the one in minor. We have a 1 chord, G minor, 2 flats, and we end on a G minor 1 chord, minor. Then we have normal, I hate using that word, but diatonic chords with no figured bass, simply a triad on C, which will be a C minor triad because of the E flat in the key signature. This is simply a 6 chord, which is a triad in first inversion, and here we have accidentals. We have a C sharp that is given in the bass, and we also have the natural 3, the 3 above the bass. Provide that analysis. Then we have a 3rd above the bass that is sharped. That would be the major dominant. And then we also have a 5/7 here. Provide that analysis and see where we are tonicizing those chords. And that would sound like this with the bass and the soprano. Fill in the blanks, both the actual blanks and the alto and tenor voices. If you had trouble with part writing, here are some examples of ways that you can avoid those pesky parallel octaves, parallel fifths, augmented seconds, and so on. Voice leading guidelines, the chromatically raised note. Whatever note is raised by half step, you should resolve that up by step. Why? Because that is our new secondary leading tone, and as we know from primary leading tones, they need to resolve up by half step. The same applies in secondary leading tones. So likewise, the chromatically lowered note should resolve down by half step. When we have a 5/7 of 4, for example, we would have that flatted 7th above the bass, which would need to resolve down by half step. Make sure that you do not forget to raise a leading tone in the minor key to resolve it to tonic. When we have a leading tone in a minor key, that's not a secondary function, that's simply a 5 chord. Make sure you resolve it to the tonic. The 7th of a major minor 7th chord, in this case 5/7 of 5, should resolve down by step. So here are some examples of proper part writing using secondary function. First, the A minor. You can see here that the G sharp resolves up by half step to the A. In this case, the D sharp, the 5/7 of 5, resolves up by half step to the E. There's the D sharp resolving up, and then the G sharp resolves up to the A. Da-dum, and the tenor voice. C major, we have 1. 7 diminished 7, that's a fully diminished 7 chord, by the way, of 5, going to the 5, and then to the 1. As you can see, the F sharp resolves up by half step to the G, and the E flat resolves down by half step to the D. The final question is my wife's maiden name, and that is Esther. I am so glad that you have joined me for today's video on secondary dominant function. I'm sure that you are so excited that you are now enlightened about both primary and secondary dominant function. The most exciting thing about composing is learning new ways to use chords. You can follow the rules and still have more juicy excitement in using those harmonies that are less bland, so to speak. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we will practice this skill more fully in class. For those of you who are still somewhat confused, we will clarify in class tomorrow and do some practice examples. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me for today's lesson, and I hope you will join me next time as we continue to expand our minds and delve deeper into the exciting world of advanced music theory. So long.